Star Trek Voyager had a get-out-of-Delta Quadrant plan and why it wasn't used. Star Trek Voyager originally had a get-out-of-the-Delta Quadrant plan, but scrapped it at the beginning of Season 2. While Voyager's sister show, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, expanded the franchise as far as the Gamma Quadrant, Voyager took things a step further when the ship was thrown 70,000 light-years across space to the uncharted Delta Quadrant. After a plan to have the entity that brought them there send them home failed, Voyager's cast of characters was stuck on the other side of the galaxy with a long journey and no way to contact Starfleet. Voyager was the first series in the Star Trek franchise to make the Lost in Space concept their entire premise. Cutting the show off from everything familiar in the franchise was a risk, but one that ultimately paid off as Voyager's crew explored the Delta Quadrant and expanded the Star Trek timeline mythos. However, there was no guarantee that the series' premise would be a success with audiences, which was why Voyager worked to include a guaranteed way for the ship to return home if it needed to as early as the pilot episode, Caretaker. Star Trek Voyager had a plan to leave the Delta Quadrant but didn't use it. Voyager baked a plan to leave the Delta Quadrant into its premise when the show established that there was another entity like the Caretaker, Basil Langton. From the start, it was understood that part of Voyager's mission in the Delta Quadrant was to look for any way to return home, including trying to find the Caretaker's mate, Suspiria, Lindsay Ridgway. Having another entity like the one that had brought them to the Delta Quadrant should have been a guaranteed ticket home, and it would have made sense for Voyager to turn the crew's search for Suspiria into a season-long journey. However, Voyager's crew ended up encountering Suspiria early in Season 2, Episode 10, Cold Fire. Not only that, but Suspiria proved hostile and unwilling to help them, taking her off the table entirely as a means to return home. It's unclear why Voyager chose to remove Suspiria as an option instead of just forgetting about or not using her. This could have been because the show was no longer worried about the popularity of its premise with audiences, but that idea is contradicted by the fact that Cold Fire was another unpopular episode in a string of Season 2's worst.